we're going to break down how to get your viewers addicted to your videos. And it starts with the intro. So what we decided to do is, well, we're going to share with you an intro that got a 73% retention in the first 30 seconds. So that's what we're going to do. And I have my my lead editor, my son, Scotty, and we are going to do this together. We are going to look at a video, and this video right here, I'm going to go ahead and scroll up here so you can see. This is the video we're going to be looking at. There's the retention. This video right now has gotten 9,500 views in the last 3 weeks. And by the way, this was a clip that we pulled out of a live stream. And that's another thing that we talk a lot about on this channel. So make sure that you subscribe and make sure that you like this video so you get more. But let's go down here and we are going to look at this here. Average percentage viewed is 36.5% of this video. And this video is 11 minutes and 7 seconds long. Now, it is underperforming on what the typical is. But what I really want to focus on is this part right here. Okay. I want to focus on this part here. I also want to focus on this part and this part because there's a reason why these two little bumps are here. And it's also something that I want Scotty and I to talk about for future videos and learn from that, because I think that could help us increase our retention. So let's go ahead and let's listen.
Etsy has a little bit of an intellectual property problem. And so it's interesting, Scott, that the same team that's responsible for the handmade policy and all those kinds of things is the team that is responsible for the intellectual property side. So copyright, trademarks, all of those kinds of things. And they took down 3.8 million listings for handmade policy violations. And they are saying that last year they took down 1.2 for IP violations. Now, I don't know
30
about
seconds.
Yep. There's your 30 seconds.
There's
So
30 seconds.
I'll just say what I saw and then you can, go off of your piece. First thing is, so we did some jump cuts in there. If you don't know what jump cuts are, and you haven't implemented those yet, or you don't know how to do those, I did create a video on that. So you can go ahead and check that video out. We'll put that in the description. Now, so there's some jump cuts going in. There also is some B-roll that we're putting up on the screen. The visual is to give you as the viewer a better representation of what we're talking about. So that way, again, you're in the right place, but also it's making you feel some sort of emotion towards it, that this is really happening. Because if you don't see it and so someone's just saying that, you might not believe it. But being able to see it on screen, now you're believing what you're seeing. Seeing is believing. So you're going to see that, and now you're going to be like, okay, yep, this is actually happening. Wow, I can't believe this. Let me hear more. Couple things with that. First we put an Etsy store. The other thing is we took actual posts from a blog or whatever of Etsy and highlighting over that. So a couple things, when you play it again in a minute, you're going to see, number one, on those images, we kind of zoom a little bit on it. If you just put a static image up on a screen, it's not as appealing as if it's moving a little bit. So that's like some tedious stuff that I do that, again, you don't have to do, but does make your video a little bit better. Another thing you may have noticed, may not, sometimes you might want to add some sounds in there. So you'll see when I was doing the highlighting thing, I did like a little marker, sound like a little marker was highlighting it. Again, it's a little extra stuff. If you don't have time for that, you don't have to do that, but it does make your videos look a little bit better. But also, when you hear a sound going along with something, it's almost a satisfying factor that people are like, oh, that makes sense because it's going across. So I'm imagining someone really doing that. So for instance, it was the marker. So I'm really thinking of someone doing it besides just, a text going over it, hearing that. Now I'm like, okay, I'm putting 2 and 2 together. This is all making sense. And then we're going to the 30-second mark, which is where now you're in the split screen or the example like we're in right now. And the biggest thing with that is your first screen is a big thing on it, which we're going to talk about, which is the 1.2 million. So the reason you clicked on the video was the 1.2 million. And the first thing you see when you're breaking it down is 1.2 million. All right, I got to hear about this now. That's where you're at.
Yeah. So let's kind of break it down like frame by frame in a sense. So let's go here real quick.
Etsy has a little bit of,
so see that slow pan back. So all that he's doing there. And again, we'll have other videos on the channel that'll show you how to do this stuff. It's not hard. You can do it right in CapCut, free. So it's not hard to do. And so that right there immediately though, as you're viewing it, it's got a little bit of slow movement.
Of an intellectual.
And then immediately it comes boom back at you now, right? So you're immediately now, even if you didn't have these zooms, if you cut and you just had different cuts, it's going, if you ever watch a commercial and you see it's kind of cutting, that's because it's keeping your attention and you're following. It needs to make sense. So like in this case, he's talking about, let me go back here again. He's talking about intellectual property. And it's really known on Etsy that Disney is being violated. So watch.
Etsy has a little bit of an intellectual property problem. And so
right there, intellectual property problem, boom, Disney right there on the front page. And then you see a little bit of the scrolling of the page.
it's interesting, Scott, that the same team that's responsible for the handmade policy.
Now, handmade, right? You found the handmade policy inside of Etsy and you started highlighting the handmade policy to draw attention to it.
And all those kinds of things is
and then if you go back, let me just go back and just listen for that marker. Now that's okay. That's advanced. And so that's not something that you have to do. That's something that he started adding because he wasn't doing that right from the get-go. More or less jump cuts, B-roll in the first 30 is probably where I would start. And then if you want to start adding sound effects, yes. But the visual is really, really important.
The same team that's responsible for the handmade policy and all those kinds of things.
So yeah, that happened. But the other thing is, again, besides just having that image there and just having it sit there and then go to the next thing, there's a slow zoom on the image. There's also the highlight over the thing. So you're being reinforced exactly what he's saying.
Yep. Okay. So let's keep going.
Policy and all those kinds of things is the team that is responsible for the intellectual property side.
So again, he's talking about it. Instead of just him talking about it, show a visual of it. And you're like, oh, so you're seeing all of these different ways to interpretate it, but also to where you're grasping it.
So copyright.
And now he came back, but if you notice, it's a slow zoom back.
Trademarks, all of those kinds of things. And
then boom, right back at you again. Those are jump cuts. Okay. And Scotty has what he calls his magic 3. So, and we're going to do a video on that. If not already, if it's not already there, it will be.
No, we have I've done a video on that already. So we'll put that in the description. You guys can see that, but I do have my magic 3, which is just 3 different types of jump cuts. One of them being the slow zoom, and the other one being the zoom in that just happened. And then the last one, I call it a small zoom, which is it's zoomed in a little bit, but not as much as the other 2. And I kind of just follow a pattern. So if you really paid attention to the videos, you would see it's the same 3. They just keep repeating over and over and over again.
Yeah, it just changes it up a little bit.
It took down 3.8 million listings for handmade.
I'd also say too, one thing that Chris is doing here is, and this is something we always do, is we're using our hands.
Yep.
So that's another little pro tip. Like even if you didn't edit, right? You didn't edit. Look what I'm doing right now. Like you can see my excitement or the point or, this, right? Like I do that a lot anyway. Just I talk with my hands. I'm just an excited type of person that just, like gets passionate about stuff, but you do it anytime you're doing this stuff. It's also something else that the person's following. So right there, I mean, he's a very hand talker himself. So it comes natural, but that's something you can do almost immediately. Like even if you're just doing the live and you're not doing any edits, use your hands a little bit. Now don't do it where you're just forcing it. You want to use your hands when it feels comfortable. But that definitely is a little pro tip.
It's funny. It looks like Chris is doing a sketch. Hey, brother.
Yeah, right. All right.
Policy violation. And they are saying that last year they took down.
Okay. That's that's 24-second marks. And that's not even at the 30. So right away, we were sharing this within the live stream, which again, another little pro tip. If you're doing live streams, you can have slides and then you can share the slides and that becomes a different edit in a sense to where now we're showing this. That slide, it took Chris probably a minute to put that in there. 1.2 million listings taken down for IP violations, right? That was it. And all that is for him and I to see it, to know that we want to talk about it, but also to represent the actual number so people can actually see it.
1.2 for IP violations. Now, I don't know about you, but that seems...
Okay, now we're at the 30-second mark. So he kind of ended on that 30-second mark, and that's it. So let's kind of look at this, though. Right here, 73% of viewers are still watching at around the 30-second mark. But what I want to look at, and this is the other cool thing that you get to see when you start getting some data, is you get to see like your average. So we're below typical retention for this one, which is totally fine. I mean, it's right there, right? But the cool thing is when you see these little bumps, okay, when you see these little bumps, that means people stopped or they skipped back. And you always want to kind of look at that, because that could be something that you could start to incorporate. And so all you do is you just kind of go here and then you just click. If I get my mouse here to work, there we go. So see, on the 1.2 million listings taken down for IP violations, people paused or skipped back because they wanted to see the 1.2 million, or they wanted to see something on the screen. So that makes me say, like, these visuals are really important for people, especially when you are talking about a number or talking about an example or something like that. Like even this right here, like us sharing this, there's people that are probably going to stop and go, what was their average percentage viewed? I want to compare it against mine. I've done that, right? So I might pause the video and then go look at mine and then come back and go, oh, mine's a 40. Cool. I'm doing better than they are, or whatever. Right. Mm-hmm. So there's different ways that when you're sharing things, it makes it, it just makes it easier for people to want to kind of go back and kind of see. So let's see what this one is. Yep. Same thing. See? So right there, that's another, I think it says here, I'm trying to read it. It's kind of small, but basically it's another percentage of like either how many were rejected. It also looks like there was reports that they challenged by sellers. How many of them were challenged by sellers? So there's different stats that a seller might want to take note of. And so to me, that's all. And I like this here. There's no hard drop like until the end. And the reason why is because right up to the end, we never say at the end, like of a video, we're not like, all right, well, that's everything. I hope you enjoyed this today. We'll be back here next week. We don't do that on these types of videos. On a live stream, we may, because they're longer and they're live. But on this here, this is going to come right to the end. And then we're pretty much either going to recommend a video or we're going to make the last point. And then we will then have a video that is similar, or that would be the next thing that they might need to learn or want to know about. And then we'll pop that up as the next screen.